Hello everyone, welcome back. So, let's talk about Hildryn, the most shield tanky warframe in the game and of all time, because a lot of things have actually happened since the last time I actually talked about her that have elevated her from really good to damn near perfect. Now, with the recent Koumei and the 5 Fates update, we've also seen two changes in particular that have pretty much solidified her position as just an incredibly powerful warframe that actually doesn't care about what comes at her, with the possible exception of Infested. And, you know, she can just blow everything up, so that's really good. But first, let me just remind you that 95% of y'all haven't actually subscribed, so maybe consider doing that because it doesn't hurt you, and it does make me feel better about myself. Okay. Now, I have been enjoying Hildryn, so I figured, let's get into it. Since I last talked about Hildryn, a few things have happened to her, so let's start off with the shield gating buffs. Hildryn's shield gate remains as the highest in the game, purposefully, mind you, at 3.5 seconds, as well as Hildryn's shields getting actually omega buffed, so she has more shields than she actually used to a long time ago. There was also the shield recharge buffs, with recharge delays reduced, recharge speeds increased, all of that good stuff. And then right after that, we also had the introduction of Prime Redirection, a primed shield mod. Anything that gives Hildryn more shields can only be a good thing. And then we also have, as of the Koumei and the 5 Fates update, the ability to use Pillage while you're in Aegis Storm. This is massive, because basically this means against shielded and armored enemies, not only are we effectively nigh invulnerable, but we literally have no energy problems now. Because remember, Hildryn uses her shields as energy. So when you can pillage shields from any enemy that has shields or armor, while you're in Aegis Storm, we don't have any energy problems at all. We also have a new augment called Aegis Gale. Now this is huge. See, this is an augment that gives her Balefires an alternate attack. Now this alternate fire takes into account your maximum shields, which means the more shields you have, the more damage you do. And it's affected by strength, and it's affected by your Balefire mods. So essentially, the math basically maths out that when you have a proper build for Hildryn with a lot of shields, and you've given her, let's say, as much power strength as you can, and you've actually built your Balefires to do as much damage as they can, yeah, it turns out this alternate fire completely slaps, and this augment slaps hard. This is not just my assessment, this is the general consensus, it seems, of the community, so definitely worth checking out. Now, without further ado, let's have a look at how I play Hildryn these days, because, oof, she's pretty damn good. Hildryn is a really straightforward warframe to play now because of those changes, and you don't have to do too much in order to get a lot of value out of her, so let's have a look. We're here with Hildryn in a simulacrum, so as always, if we were to summon our usual corrupted heavy gunners, we can have a look at the kind of damage that we can do. As you can see, this warframe and her Balefires do a lot of damage. And that is pretty much the combat loop with Hildryn. You just basically blow things up, then you use Pillage in order to, you know, regenerate and restore your shields, and then you rinse and repeat. Now, I do want to mention one thing that I kind of don't like about what's happened to Hildryn, and hopefully they can look into this particular thing as well, because in my opinion, the Balefire Surge augment for her Balefires has been made effectively redundant. And if I wanted redundancy, I would be sticking with the old Inaros. Now, the extra shield restore that comes from this augment is mostly no longer needed because, again, we can pillage in Aegis Storm. And the effect of being able to one-tap Nullifier Shields is kind of largely lost as well. That also doesn't seem terribly necessary anymore because of the alt fire's rapid fire from that Aegis Gale augment. That also wrecks Nullifier Shields. The difference, of course, is that when you're using something like Balefire Surge, you actually regenerate shields when you hit Nullifier Shields with a fully charged shot, as opposed to using Aegis Gale, which just uses up your shields instead. But I don't feel like that's important because, again, we can now use Pillage in Aegis Storm. And let me just quickly demonstrate what I mean by being able to shut down Nullifier Shields without actually using Balefire Surge, because it ends up looking a little bit like this. So yeah, as you can see, the rapid fire from the Aegis Gale alternate fire is also shutting down Nullifier Shields as well, thus making Balefire Surge not terribly useful, in my opinion. Now, this playstyle that I enjoy has one particular flaw, which is when you go up against enemies that don't have shields or armor. Now, some notable examples include, I think, most infested and I think all Murmur type enemies. Don't quote me on that. There is, however, a band-aid solution that I've found that pretty much works well in things like mobile defense missions, or I guess actual defense missions. Pretty much any mission where you don't go from one map to the other. Another case in point being the Fragmented One boss fight. And that is a Shield Osprey Spectre. Oh wow, I can't say that at all. Essentially, when you leave the Shield Osprey's range, and then you return back to it at some point, the Shield Osprey actually just completely replenishes all of your shields. So when you have a Hildryn build that has, let's say, 5,500 shields, and you're starting to run out of shields against, let's say, infested, all you gotta do is just get away from your Shield Osprey and then get back to your Shield Osprey, and then boom, you're back to 5,500 shields. So that's pretty damn nice. So yeah, against enemies where you can't pillage shields or armor, this can be a solution. Now, the regular Osprey, for whatever reason, gets stuck fighting random ass enemies even though you've decided to move very, very far ahead. So that's kind of why I'm not keen on recommending this for any mission where you do actually have to move far ahead, like captures, possibly survivals and stuff like that. That being said though, there is an alternative in the Corrupted Bombard Spectre. This one brings his own Corrupted Shield Osprey as well. So maybe it might be useful, because I think usually Bombard Spectres will actually try to follow you a little bit better than at the very least what the Shield Osprey Spectre is trying to do. Due to the nature of how much shields Hildryn has, as well as the new Pillage thing, I find efficiency mods to be completely unnecessary on her. But if you somehow find yourself constantly running out of shields, first off, that might be a skill problem, but secondly, feel free to try and fit one in. Otherwise, for me, it's all about as much power strength as you can, followed by as much power duration as you can, and then try to keep stretch on your build as a pretty solid general idea. Now, of course, if you want to have more range on your build, feel free. You have that flexibility to kind of just build her how you want, of course. Now, the aforementioned Prime Redirection is pretty much something that I highly recommend getting from Barakatia whenever he stocks it up again, or during the next TennoCon, because he brings everything when he shows up for TennoCon. Keep in mind as well, this mod is actually really good for Mac as well, so yeah, definitely worth getting. Now, equipping this in tandem with a mod like Adaptation makes Hildryn extremely tanky, if not the most tanky warframe in the game, possibly. Let me know in the comments if you feel that as well. But either way, yeah, putting those two together just basically means it's really hard to get killed as Hildryn, outside of toxin damage, of course. And Blazing Pillage being one of Hildryn's augments for her third ability, it still remains very, very useful for faster armor removal, so I keep it on. And then, like I mentioned, Aegis Gale is the new augment, it's busted. So that is kind of how I arrive at a build like this for Hildryn. Now, There are a few arcanes that are very, very useful for Hildryn, but my favorites are basically 3 of them. Bolt Augmented, because we want more power strength, Bolt Efficiency for what is essentially permanent duration increase, and then there's also Arcane Aegis. Arcane Aegis I think is really, really strong on someone like Hildryn, and of course any other Warframe that has shields, because not only does it make you functionally invulnerable for a period of time, but for Hildryn in particular, it basically means you have infinite energy for that period of time as well. Thus, that is why I tend to swap and change between those 3 arcanes for Hildryn. You'll also need to build your Balefire as well. Now, Balefire is a bit of a weird weapon if you ask me. It's innate electro, so... Oh, sorry, did I say electro? Oh my god, I'm Genshin Braid to the max. It's innate electric damage. Oh my god. So, IPS mods like Karna's Stinger, completely unnecessary. They're worthless on something like the Balefire. The crit and status of the Balefire at base is also really, really low. We have a 1.5 times crit multiplier as opposed to the average 2, so that's not really worth looking into either. I find crit and status mods to be quite pointless on the Balefire myself, but if that's something you want to do, feel free. It does affect your arcane, not your arcane Aegis, your Aegis Gale as well, so that's going to be really, really good. So at the end of the day, the way I've built Balefire is just pure, unadulterated, raw damage. As much damage as possible, as much elemental damage as possible, and multi-shot as well as fire rate. Fire rate is pretty important because that also affects Aegis, oh my god, I keep calling it Arcane Aegis, Aegis Gale's alternate fire as well, so definitely worth checking out. Thus, this is how I arrive at a build like this. Nothing too special, but it's a lot of base damage right there. You probably have something else that works as well. Let me know how that ends up in the comments below. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover with Hildryn and her recent buffs, because, you know, we had that shield game, we have those shield recharge changes, the insane utility of Pillage in Aegis Storm, the raw power of the Aegis Gale Augment. Yeah, she's really gone from someone who's really, really good to one of the most versatile and powerful Warframes in the game. If you're looking for a Warframe that can tank like crazy, do a lot of damage, and pretty much handle any challenge that the game throws at her, with the possible exception of infested enemies and, you know, some procs and all that jazz, Hildryn is definitely worth checking out again, because she's really, really good. Thanks for watching. Let me know about all of this in the comments below. Are you playing more Hildryn these days? Let me know in the comments. I might actually start playing more Hildryn after this as well, alongside other Warframes that I've started playing a bit more, like Several Goths and of course Jade. Is she better than Mag? Probably not. My Mag bias will probably continue to be in favor of Mag, but goddamn, Hildryn is so good. So yeah, definitely worth getting into once again. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Summon the tide now. My, you are quite something. Return to the sanctum.